Okay, so we are once again continuing on our series about the spiritual offices, and today we're looking at shepherds. Now, I'll go back and we'll look back at the passage, and some some uh, some interpretations or translations will use the word pastor in place of shepherd. So going into Ephesians 4, chapter 11. So Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, and teachers to equip his people for works of service, so that the body of Christ may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God, and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. Now, the word pastor is both, so it is interpreted as pastor by some translations, and it's interpreted as shepherd by other translations. Now, to be very specific for just a moment, we're going to explore this for just a second, and this kind of gives an idea of who shepherds are as members of the fivefold ministry and kind of the heart cry that they have. The word shepherd, or the word in this case, in this passage, is poimenos, and that comes from the Greek word poimen, which means literally a shepherd. So, no mystery there. The usage, though, describes a shepherd, which means, in this case, the feeder, protector, and ruler of a flock of men. And that's according to Strong's Concordance. The Helps Word Studies description goes on to say, poimen is properly a shepherd or a pastor, which is, pastor was the Latin word for shepherd. And it means figuratively someone who the Lord raises up to care for the total well-being of his flock, and those are the people of the Lord. So this is where we get the word from. So to be a shepherd is to be a shepherd. The word pastor is a Latin word that we've adopted as having its own meaning, and we're going to use the word shepherd because pastor, as I said before, it has certain connotations. We're not talking about the person in the front of the church. And we're going to run into this again and again and again, especially when we talk about apostles. Because what we have in the church is there's been a continuous lack of understanding for what exactly these offices are, for what exactly these titles mean. There are many people who read Ephesians 11 or Ephesians 4:11, and they interpret that not as specific roles in the church, but rather specific titles in a hierarchy. There are some who have interpreted it that prophet is not a prophet, but rather it is a title for somebody who's almost like a second in command in the church. The top guy is going to be the apostle, and below them are going to be the prophets. And then down the line to the shepherds and the evangelists and the teachers, right?
So it's like a matter of rank.
Right, exactly. People have treated these like just a ranking system, and titles that come with rank.
Okay.
And unfortunately, with pastor and shepherd, with pastor specifically, there's been an issue where the title pastor has been applied to the leaders of churches for a very long time, and as such it's kind of muddied the waters of what that means. Now, you could say that it is accurate, because a lot of those people, what they're doing is they're feeding the sheep. But what they're not doing necessarily is being a shepherd. They're not necessarily being a pastor. A lot of these people at the front of the church are not in fact pastors. They're not in fact shepherds. They have we call them pastor, and they do some of the work, but many of them are evangelists or teachers by office. And you can tell the difference because of the demeanor and the heart that they have for the people. We've already covered evangelists, so I'll use them as an example. You know, we talked about how for evangelists, their real cry in their hearts was to gather and save. They want to go out and they want to bring people in. And you'll notice their churches will very much be focused on going out and spreading the word. You know, the Great Commission will very much be a mission statement for their church. Shepherds' heart cry is for the deepening of the church. And what I mean by that is they want people, their heart for people is for them to develop the roots that help them to grow and deepen their relationships in the church, deepen their relationship with the community, deepen their relationships with God. They want growth more than anything else, but they're not as focused in expansion. Most of them are much more focused on personal growth, personal development. And the thing about it is I say that, but there are some caveats there. There's a lot of different kinds of shepherds with a lot of different kinds of giftings. So when we talk about that, like going back to, I already, in the evangelist message, we talk about 1 Corinthians 12, where Paul kind of goes off on this thing here, where he says, let's see, we're going to start in verse, let's just start in 27. So 1 Corinthians 12:27, now you are the body of Christ, and each one of you is a part of it. And God has placed in the church, first of all, apostles, second, prophets, third, teachers, then miracles, then gifts of healing, of helping, of guidance, and of different kinds of tongues. Are all apostles, are all prophets, are all teachers, do all work miracles? Do all speak in tongues? Do all interpret? Now eagerly desire the greater gifts. And the thing about it is that with that being said, you know, Paul kind of lays out a hierarchy in this case, but it's a little muddied by the fact that he's referring to giftings. Now, the thing of it is like within that scope, you might ask the question, because specifically named are the apostles, prophets, and teachers, but he doesn't name the evangelists and he doesn't name the shepherds. Well, we look at the kinds of giftings that shepherds have, right? So some are miracle workers. There are shepherds who are gifted to be miracle workers, where they will pray, where they will be, for example, like some of the strongest intercessors I've known are shepherds, like by office. And those are miracle workers in their own right.
Yeah.
Some of the strong, and I've known a few shepherds who were gifted to be prophetic, who were gifted to be gifted with gifts of healing, and so on. So there are miracle workers, there are things, but that he specifically says this thing about the gift of helping, and that's a big thing. Shepherds are big on that, and helping is a big word. And why I say that is that there's a lot of different kinds of shepherds who do a lot of different kinds of things. So you have your shepherds where they're I don't want to say standard shepherds, but they are very much so your pastors. They're the people who can take leadership roles, and their whole heart is to see the church grow. Their focus is on this mission, on this community, on this church, and they're looking to deepen the roots of the people in it in such a way, because at the end of the day, their heart is for growth, but their heart is for the growth of the church as a whole. And that's a big thing with shepherds. It's a big way to distinguish them from other offices, is that growth is the thing that they seek. That is the cry of their heart. You have like people who are gifted with like a shepherd's heart. So like I know a lot of prophets who have shepherd's hearts. Um, but the thing that distinguishes them from shepherds proper is what they use that heart for. They have a tremendous heart to help and to preserve and to like lead people to grow. And the thing about it is that the kind of growth that they want, though, they have a specific bent. It's not general, it's not holistic. They want, so like the prophets that I know who have shepherds' hearts, they want growth. And they will tell you, we want to see the body grow, we want to see people grow. But when you get into the nitty gritty of what they actually want, as you kind of delve into what their heart's really crying out for, they want people to grow in God specifically. And by that I mean like um,
Hearing its voice.
growing in intimacy.
Yeah.
So hearing his voice, feeling his presence, experiencing his everything. And shepherds will want that too, but it's not as specific. Shepherds will want that as part of the whole. They want you to be healthy physically, emotionally, spiritually. They'll read you passages, they'll give you scriptures, they'll give you like guidelines on how to like they'll give you like guidelines on like, you know, steps you can take in order to develop patterns of like devotionals and different things like that. You know, evangelists will hand you devotions too, but they're not as focused on it. Shepherds will give you a step-by-step program because it's their heart. They want you to grow in relationship with God. They want you to grow in relationship with the church. They want you to grow in different things. And not every shepherd is necessarily gifted or is focused on the growth of the individual. Some people are focused on the growth of the whole. And like I said about the kind of like the pastor proper, as we'll call them, their focus is on the church. So they want to see the church grow. They want to see the church deepen. They want to see the church. So they will kind of be an everyman where they need to be. They may not be so focused on an individual person, but they will be focused on the church as a whole. And they will watch the church as a whole to see if it deepens and grows. And that's how they will kind of, that's the heart that they will have, is just watching it all work. In the same vein, you have the people with the gift of the administrators. A lot of the people who have a gift of administration, they tend to be shepherds. Now, they may not be so great with people. Like, they'll have a heart for people. Like, they'll absolutely want to take care of people. But their care is different. It's not going to be as, like...
Emotional.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. It's not going to be as emotional. It's going to be more practical. So their focus is going to be like, okay, well, what are the things that we can do to make things better? And they're going to like, they're oftentimes going to be the people who will be able to like help people file their taxes, help people get in touch with people that they need to.
Organized.
They will help. Thank you. They will help people get organized, and that's their heart. That's their gifting. It's their heart, but also it's their way of helping people grow. They're going to physically help you, and on a level that not all of us have. To be real, we're not all good at paperwork. And if you can have somebody with a gift of administration show up and guide you through the process of your paperwork, it is a wonderful experience. I promise you.
So shepherds also take care of your soul.
Yes.
They don't care even just about the spiritual. It's like all aspects of you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They want the whole thing. And it's not even necessarily that you'll have... Like, one of the things with it is that shepherds are one of the more... I don't like to use the word common because it might make people think like they're not as important, but they're the more popular one of the more populous offices, and that's important.
Yeah,
Because
God needs a lot of shepherds.
there's a lot of shepherds, there's a lot of people coming into the church who need shepherds, and there's a lot of different kinds of shepherds. So like I've already talked about kind of the proper pastor, the pastor proper, the administrator. There's also the counselor. There's the nurturers. There's
Protector.
the protectors. There's the oh man, what's a good word for it? I don't want to say concierge, but it's kind of what they are. They have the gift of hospitality.
Oh, yeah.
The gift of hospitality is a big thing with certain shepherds, where they're just going to create a home for you.
Yes.
And to go into like each of those specifically, just real quick, you know, you have we'll call them the concierge, and I apologize, but the gift of hospitality, it's a beautiful thing. So don't like mistake the title. If you find a better one, by all means, put it in the comments of this video, please. Save me from me. But that's the thing is like, the gift of hospitality is such an important thing in the church to be able to like bring people in and make them feel at home.
Yes.
To make them feel at home, to make them feel comfortable, to make them feel welcome. That's huge. And so many shepherds are gifted in that. It just comes naturally to them. There's one person in particular who I know and think about every time when I think about the gift of hospitality. And she was like the mother to this group for like a long time before she had to leave us to go move. But that was the thing, was she always made, no matter where we were, no matter where we met up, she always made it she always made everybody feel at home.
Oh.
You know, when we were a small group and we would bounce between my apartment, other people's apartments, random locations, she made people feel at home, no matter where we were. She would bring food. She would bring just herself and her own warmth. And that was a huge, huge thing. It made people feel welcome at home and able to just relax and to be able to just receive, to grow, to feel like, hey, I can actually put my roots down here. And that's huge. That's huge for developing any kind of community. And it's funny because it's not even necessarily that that's where their head is, but it's where their heart is, whether or not they understand that. They just want to help. They just want to provide. And that's it. That's it. That's all they have. That's all that's going on a lot of times. They want people to feel welcome. They want people to feel loved. The protectors are another kind of shepherd. They're not always great with the interpersonal stuff either, like administrators. Some of them are. Not all of them, though. But what they do have is they have this heart to protect. They're gonna be they're gonna be like church security. Whether they're actually security or not, they're going to be. You know, I have one person who I think of with this one as well, and they're always on guard for like people who are dangerous. And that's also important because the truth of the matter is that, you know, the reality of church is that it's big. And there's a lot of different kinds of people who come through the door, and sometimes you have wolves. Sometimes you have wolves in sheep's clothing, and they're going to come through, and they're going to slip by the prophets, they're going to slip by the apostles. Not usually, but it can happen. And that's where these guys come in and sometimes they'll even just confirm what those prophets and apostles are feeling in the spirit. And sometimes that's really important. Because it's not always as easy to discern, like, okay, am I actually feeling something, or am I just annoyed by this person? Is this actually a spirit, or is this something else? Is this person actually like this, or am I just like picking stuff up? Am I just judging them? And then you have these protector shepherds.
Their eyes are on it.
Their eyes are on it, their ears are on it, and they're on it, and then they show up and they're like, hey, this person, and you're just like, thank you. And then you handle it. You know, and that's the thing, is that
Or
like,
even sometimes other sheep that in their immaturity because they're dangerous.
Just
And, yeah.
yeah, just in case that didn't come through on the microphone, what Heather said was, when you have other sheep who sometimes in their immaturity become dangerous, protector shepherds will definitely draw attention to them as well.
They'll help. Yeah.
And that's the thing, they're such a boon to any society, to any community that you can have. You know, and then you have your nurturers. These people just want to take care of people. Like their heart, like they could come off as being like very bleeding heart, but that's what they are. Like they have this heart that just cries out to take care of people. It's all they want to do. And when you have people who are sick, when you look at the church for what it is, you want those people who are going to just want to take people, put them under their wings, and just take care of them until they can grow to stand on their own feet. When you have a church full of babies, you need people who are going to be able to nurture them to health, nurture them to growth. And that's what these people do. And that's their gifting. It's not something that they should be mocked about. It's not something that they should be looked down upon or seen as naive for. That's their heart. That's the gifting that God has given them.
And not everyone can do it like they can.
Not everyone can do it like they can. What is that verse? There's that thing that it's one of the prophets' books, I'm sure. Or maybe it was Jesus himself, but he was saying how it was God speaking, saying, "O Israel, how I just long to like bring you under my wings like a mother hen."
Yeah. I can find it.
Okay. If you can find it, I'd love that. But yeah, that is the heart that they have. That's the part of God's character that they're carrying. And if it comes across as a lot sometimes, that's because that's a lot. Could you imagine having to like carry a portion of God's like love and nurturing heart for people? It's going to be huge. It's going to be a lot. And that's the thing, is it's such a good, amazing thing to have in the church, because you have people who need it. You have people who don't want it who need it. And it's just the reality of it, you know?
And these are people who you can just feel that it's okay to have vulnerabilities in front of.
Yeah. Again, in case that didn't come through on the microphone, what Heather said was, these are people who you can feel safe to have vulnerabilities in front of. And again, that's a huge thing in the church. Like, none of us grow. Look, Jesus said it really well when he made a comment about, in order for a seed to grow, it has to die. So first the seed has to come off the plant, it has to die, and then from that grows a new tree. That is the thing that all of us have to face as we come into the church and we go to give up our lives to Jesus. We need people who are able to make us feel safe enough to get vulnerable, to have breakthrough.
Absolutely.
Because vulnerability is the death of pride. Vulnerability is the place from which we become low and we become humble, and from there we can grow.
Yeah.
All of these shepherds have a gift for taking us to vulnerable places, by making us feel safe, by making us feel loved, by making us feel comfortable, by making us feel welcomed. All of these different facets of things are so incredibly important. You know, and then to talk about a couple of other shepherds, you have your nurturers.
I found the verse.
Oh,
so you know.
yes. What?
It is Jesus. It's Luke 13.
Luke 13.
34 and 35. Jesus says, "How often have I desired to gather your children together, as a hen gathers her brood under her wings."
Yeah.
And then there's another reference to it in Psalm 91, I think, here.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, this is the thing. Like, that's the heart that they're carrying. So, I mean, like, you know, you also have, like I mentioned earlier, you also have your intercessors. Now, intercessors are kind of like their own thing. You can have prophets who are intercessors, you can have evangelists who are intercessors, you can have everything. But shepherds that intercede, the most powerful intercessors that I have known have been shepherds. And the reason why I suspect, is because of that heart to just generally help. They're not focused on what they think the people need as much as what they know that God wants from them to grow.
Yeah.
And that's that's their heart. That's the whole thing.
Yeah. They will pull you to freedom.
They will pull you to freedom. That's what Heather said. Yeah. So, you know, you have a lot of different kinds of shepherds. And the thing about them is that, and I know I'm forgetting a couple but there's a lot, and I'm getting distracted and needing to like go forward here. But you have a lot of different kinds of shepherds. And the healers. We have to talk about the healers. The counselors.
Yay.
Yeah. So there are some shepherds where they are gifted in such a way, and their heart cry is so much to be focused on the soul. They're the people who are going to sit there and they're going to want to take you under their wing and counsel you. They want to hear everything that's going on with you. They want to hear your heart. They want to hear the grievances that you have in it. They want to hear about the wounds that are inside here. They might not be so focused on your physical stuff, but they are very much focused on your heart. And they're going to nurture that. Like, nurturers will take care of all kinds of things. Like, they're going to pour love all over you. But counselors are going to guide you, because that's their heart. They're going to guide you to places of growth where, through the process of working through your soul. And a lot of them, a lot of them don't even know it. They just want to take care of you. Like I said, there's so much of this where, like, I'm coming at this from the perspective of somebody who's spent some time talking to God about it. Like, back and forth, just like, okay, but how does this work and why? And then he responds, and it's like fascinating. And then I've observed it. But for most people who are shepherds, they just want to help. They just want to help people. They just want to see people grow. And that's it. That's the whole thing. They just have this certain drive, one way or the other. Some of them are aware. You know, they are aware of who they are and what they're about, and those ones are dangerous to the forces of hell, because they will take people who are broken and damaged and destroyed, and they will resuscitate those people back to being warriors.
Oh, maybe mention the gift giving thing. You know how, like, shepherds will just have this eerie, like, idea of the exact right gift to give somebody to make them feel seen. And
we'll get there.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry. That's a different topic.
Yeah.
So the thing about it is that in all of them, what they do is they just want to help. They just want to take care of people. And that's their heart. That's their heart. That's what drives them. So to speak more generally, and I guess we'll just go into it since she brought it up. You know, there's a lot of, like, little traits that you'll find with shepherds. A lot of unique little qualities. So, like, every shepherd has some level of gifting this way and that way. And Heather's mentioning the gifts thing. Because one of the things about shepherds is that, and this is all of them, mind you, all of them, they have this uncanny knack to find things that you need. You know,
without you even telling them.
Without you telling them, without talking to you about it or being specific about it. You know, they'll just get things. They'll get you gifts. They'll get you things that, like, and as shepherds, like, you'll feel this inclination, you'll see the need, and you don't know. You just you might be at the store and you think, oh, so and so needs this, and then you pick it up and it's just like bewildering. And the funny thing about it is sometimes, like, for like shepherds with the gift of administration, right? They'll go and, like, they'll get somebody something that person probably doesn't appreciate, but they will use it. They will absolutely use it because they'll find out, they'll try it, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, this made my life so much easier. And then you're just like, yeah.
They pay attention too.
Yeah.
They have a knack for memorizing people's favorites, you know, with different things, and
Yep.
yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, it comes with the thing of them, like, just wanting to take care of people, because part of taking care of people is learning what people want and need. And, you know, like I said, it's not just needs, it's also wants.
Yes.
Because that's part of it. And that heart to just, like, to give gifts, to provide for people. And that's a big part of it, is that provisional side of God exists in shepherds.
Yes.
And, like, everybody has little bits and pieces. Like, don't get it misconstrued to think that, like, you know, if you meet a shepherd, they're just going to be completely stingy or anything like that. All I'm saying is that shepherds have a specific gifting, a specific bent. Some of them less than others, some of them more than others, a lot. But they have their eyes open to what people need. They have their hearts open to what people want and what their favorite things are. They'll, like, remember your birthday at random, you know, like, you might forget it, but they will remember it.
They're good to have in charge of, like, activities too, where you're needing to gather people together for different things.
Yeah.
For bonding, you know, because that's part of the church family is being able to bond.
Yeah. I had one, I remember, like, talking about it, it made me think of my grandmother, actually. My grandma on my mom's side was a shepherd through and through. And she was very much so like a caretaker. And when I say caretaker, what I mean is that she just was always doing everything she could to take care of everybody she could. You know. So for all of us kids, she did everything. I mean, she would clean our house. She would feed us. And she would sit us down and, like, spend time with us just talking to us. You know, and it didn't matter which kids it was. My stepsisters got the same treatment as me and my brother. As me and my only other full blood brother, who were, you know, her legit grandchildren, but our stepsisters got the same treatment where she would take care of them. And when they felt like they were, like, not wanted, she would take them and she would make sure they felt wanted. And that was the thing, was, like, not to get too far into it, but, like, my mom would make them feel uncomfortable a lot. Heather laughs. She knows. But the thing about it was that what my grandmother would then do is she would just take them in. And she would sit there and she'd talk to them. She'd get to know them. She'd speak with them. She would spend time with them and just let them know that they were welcomed and loved. And it was a huge thing. She'd feed them. And then she'd go and she'd also defend them. She would go to my mom and be like, hey, this is what they need. Do it. And my mom would oblige. Because her mom got after her. But, you know, it's just one of those things. Like, shepherds just can be this thing. And that's the thing, too, is, like, you know, we can talk about hierarchies and different things like that. Shepherds, when they know what somebody needs, and they're right and they know it, and there's no like question. And I don't mean like they got something wrong, but they know in their heart of hearts that this is what something needs. It doesn't matter what authority you have. You could be the head of the church, you could be the head of 5 churches. You're going to get taken care of. It doesn't matter what you say. It's going to happen. Okay? It's for the best.
And even if you say you're fine, you are gonna be comforted.
Yeah. If you say you're fine, you're going to be comforted. They're going to take care of you. You think you're strong? No, you're not. They are stronger, and their will is greater than yours. You won't even know. You'll just wake up in a warm bath. It's one of those things that with cookies on the side. It's just their heart. Like it truly is their heart, and it's incredible, you know. They're the ones who will sometimes, like so many shepherds will lead like movements in the church to take care of people. Like that line that it's in Isaiah, and Jesus quotes it to the Pharisees as well. If you knew what it meant to love mercy and to care for the orphans and widows. Shepherds, so many shepherds have that in their heart, especially as they mature. And that's the thing, is like mature shepherds, they get this. Immature shepherds sometimes struggle with this. And you know, that's kind of another thing to talk about, is like, you know, there are immaturities and pitfalls for shepherds, just like there are for evangelists, just like there will be for every other office that we talk about. You know, and one of the signs of like an immature shepherd is that desire to like just take care of people. You know, they might, and what I mean by that is, one of the signs of an immature shepherd is not understanding their boundaries. And there's kind of a caveat to this, because there's a pitfall here too. But what I'm specifically referencing is not understanding their own boundaries in the sense of
being in people's business.
we'll get to that.
Okay.
I'm talking more about being unable to take care of themselves as well.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
kind of this martyr complex that will happen.
Yeah.
Where they're going to sacrifice themselves entirely to take care of as many people as they can.
Mm-hmm.
This is the sign of an immature shepherd.
Yeah.
They will kill themselves just trying to be there for everybody that they can be, to take care of everybody that they can, to take care of everything that they can. And they'll just run themselves ragged to the point where they can't keep going. And that's a struggle that a lot of like young shepherds have, because they just have the heart to help, but they don't know where to draw the line and say, okay, I need to stop and take care of myself. And unfortunately, like one of the other signs of an immature shepherd that is directly linked to this is when they pull back in the other direction. When they become completely closed off and can get into places where they make it all about themselves. As they try to establish boundaries and understand where to draw the lines for the boundaries. And this, and mind you, like there are other people with shepherds' hearts can fall into this too. Evangelists can fall into this. There's a lot of different parts of the fivefold ministry where they can fall into failing to develop boundaries. But shepherds are one of the ones that can become the most... They can become the most abusive, I would say, in trying to establish their boundaries. Because the thing about it is that a lot of young shepherds have had the experience of being taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are a lot of like shepherds who are just natural nurturers who just want to take care of everybody, and then lo and behold, they have somebody come along who sees their heart, recognizes what they're about, and decides to just bleed them dry.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they say, hey, I need
Use them.
something, huh?
Use them.
Just use them up.
Mm-hmm.
And when they finally need something back, that person will just drop them
Mm-hmm.
and betray them entirely. They may even have like a full villain monologue of explaining how, like, haha, you know, you were dumb enough to let me use you this whole time, and just, you know, really grind it in there, this hurt. And that's the thing, is that like a lot of immature shepherds will respond then by kind of like, they go from being completely poured out to turtling up. And
Thinking everyone's going to take advantage of them.
yeah, thinking everybody's going to take advantage of them, thinking that everybody's a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah.
You know, they can become even kind of paranoid about it, where it becomes this thing where it's just like they have to protect themselves now entirely. So you have this push and pull where you have shepherds pouring themselves out to too much, and then you have them pulling themselves in too much. And those are both signs of immaturity. You know, to develop that, there is a system to develop that, and it's not, some of it's experience, some of that is them being cognizant of what they can and cannot do, and accepting those boundaries. Both they need to come to terms with accepting the boundaries of what they can and cannot do, as well as their own limitations, as well as when to say no. I need to protect myself. And a lot of times they'll need somebody there to help them. Well, we'll get into that a little bit later. You know, another kind of sign of an immature shepherd is what Heather mentioned about getting into people's business too much. Again, it's a boundary issue. That's a reoccurring theme. Like I promised you, like when you talk about immature shepherds, the biggest struggle that they have as they develop is boundaries. Mm-hmm. They don't know when to say. They don't always know when to say no. They don't always know when to stop themselves. And that's when we get into the getting into people's business thing. A lot of immature shepherds, and this one, though, is also a pitfall. Because even mature shepherds can fall into this thing where they're getting too invested in people's business. They can fall into becoming gossipy or judgmental.
It's just like exposing people when they shouldn't. And...
Oh, we'll get to that for sure. That's another pitfall thing. But the thing about it is that like this is both a sign of immaturity and it's a sign of it's a pitfall for older shepherds as well. But it's like, or more mature shepherds, but getting into people's business too much, because what happens is you start to kind of like, you take these people on in some regard, right? And you're just there taking care of them, you're nurturing them, you're protecting them, you are helping them. Well, sometimes you start to get a little too far into that. I've seen a lot of shepherds, like immature shepherds, end up in bad relationships because they were trying to help this person and it became a romantic relationship when it was always supposed to be something more like a doctor and a patient. There needed to be boundaries, but those boundaries were never established, and the desire to help was misconstrued as a romantic love. And as a result, you end up with this very broken, very damaged person, and this other person who has no ability to say no, bending over backwards to try to like take care of them, and them taking and them giving and them taking and them giving, and finally at the end you have one person just drained again and the other person finally being able to stand on their own, but they're looking at the husk of this person that they've just taken everything from, and they're just like, well, you're not the person that I love anymore. And unfortunately, that I've seen that play out a number of times in my life, especially in the church. And it's heartbreaking. But there's a thing there where it's like, well, in retrospect, this probably should have never gotten this far. On the flip side of that, the pitfall side, where it's something that can affect both immature and mature shepherds, is in this regard where they, what do you call it? Where you can get gossipy or judgmental, because you start delving into the deepest details of the person's life without recognizing the boundaries of like where you need to keep a more open mind, right? And this kind of gets into this place where like that protective nature can kind of turn on you. And like I said, this is something that affects mature shepherds as well, because they'll kind of like, they'll become team so-and-so, right? Because they're taking care of this person, because they're attached to this person, because they're invested in this person's life, and they start getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and they get more and more invested, they can very much so become a, become committed to this person in a way that isn't entirely healthy anymore, because they start to put them on a pedestal, or they become their own. You know what I mean? Like they become like, well, this person is mine, and I will protect them. And sometimes that person is doing dumb things. They're being bad, but you're going to protect them anyways, because they're yours. And yeah, you become an enabler. And this is a pitfall, because I've seen mature shepherds fall into this as well, where they'll have somebody come along who they believe in, or somebody who they really just want to see grow. And then they'll attach themselves to that person, and they start like, getting more and more and more attached, and more into their business. And they can become, I've literally watched them go from being just mature caretakers to being people who are like gossipy, judgmental of other people around this person, and ultimately, like, it becomes a thing where they're just so invested in this person and this person's life that they kind of lose sight of why they were there in the first place, which was that this person needed help. This person was not actually as strong as they needed to be, and that was the thing. And as such, you begin to take on traits of that person. Another kind of pitfall thing that's kind of attached to that is attached to the judgmental thing, which is the call-out thing. Which comes into this place where like shepherds can fall into things where they can become gossipy and judgmental, but more than that, they can become confrontational. And when they start to trust certain people too much, they lose that objectivity that would allow them to, like, consider the other person. And they can become, they can come to a point where they will actually, like, call people out over gossip, call people out over what they've heard about this person through the grapevine. They'll call people out over things, and sometimes, when they get hurt by that person, they might just lash out and like use information that was, you know, what's the word? That was privileged, and they might make that public now because they're hurt and they want to hurt back. And you know, it's not a good look. It's not a good place. It's certainly not something that we're called to be or do, but it's an understandable pitfall for people who spend their time taking care of other people, just loving people, and then suddenly getting their hearts broken by them, getting betrayed. You know, it's easy to understand why they would respond this way. The problem comes into the fact that they'll justify it. And that's the scary side of like the pitfalls that shepherds can have, is when they start to become the arbiters of what is acceptable in terms of justice. Because in a lot of ways they can kind of fall into this thing where they just don't see past their hurt, and they start to make decisions about what should and shouldn't be done to take care of that person, and they'll justify it as, well, this person needs to learn, so I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to take revenge to make them learn a lesson.
Well, yeah.
And that can be that's problematic, because at that point you're taking the place of God, right? You know, I believe it's Romans 15 where he says it's mine to avenge. You know, and that's the thing, is like, and I don't really want to spend too much time dwelling on more pitfalls, but there is one other one, and that's when, and this is something where like a lot of shepherds can run into, which is sometimes getting too deep into other people's business means that they'll start coming to conclusions about what they need, to the point where you'll start trying to force it. This is a pitfall that a lot of shepherds will fall into, which is kind of this, like, when they get into that like kind of doctor-patient mentality where they start saying, okay, well, I know what you need better than you do. And sometimes that's true. You know, sometimes just the gifting that you have means that you do know. You are right. But it's how you go about bestowing that can become problematic. You know, I've seen shepherds many times over, like, try to force people into what they believed they needed or even knew they needed. I've seen shepherds be wrong too, where they just like, they really felt this person needed this thing, but it was like, you know, in like kind of digging into it, it's like, no, they don't need that. You're trying to force them to get this thing. They don't need it. But they're just like, no, they need it. I'm right. And that's kind of the thing. That's another pitfall that, you know, even mature shepherds can fall into these things, right? Like, usually mature shepherds usually have a better understanding of boundaries for themselves specifically and for others in terms of what they'll allow and what they'll accept. The problems come, that the things where it can become a pitfall, is getting invested in the person. That can be the most, like, the one boundary that every shepherd, no matter how mature they are, can kind of like crumble into. Is just like where it stops, where to stop in terms of like your attachment's not quite the right word, but basically your commitment to that person, where it can become a thing where you can lose sight of your commitment to God. So this can become kind of the thing. And like, you know, we've seen a lot of and that's the thing, is like, one of the biggest things with that then is to kind of talk about like how to build shepherds up in the church, because it's one of the most, like, shepherds are so important, but at the same time, like, a lot of the people who are gifted as shepherds, who are anointed, who have that office, I they're the ones who I've seen struggle the most in terms of, like, well, I don't want to say I've seen struggle the most, but what I mean is that what I've seen is in terms of them being, like, existing in the sphere of the church, I've seen them kind of be the most often undermined, or the most often, like, disregarded in terms of, like, their opinions or their value or what they have to offer. You know, there's such a focus because because the church at large is so evangelism focused and so focused on evangelist kind of thought. A lot of shepherds get kind of, like, brushed to the wayside, where, you know, they're as an office, they're not necessarily called so highly to be, you know, fishers of men, or, like, to be expanding the church in the sense of going out and, like, going out and making disciples. Their focus is so much more inward. So oftentimes you'll see shepherds who are being, like, told that they need to have a different identity, being told that they need to be a different kind of person, being told that their focus on the heart. I have personally seen shepherds sat down and told that their feeling called to the church was a lie from the devil, and that they needed to go out and they needed to look at the Great Commission and follow that. And they needed to go out and make disciples of the world, because the church is God's house and he's going to take care of it. Well, the thing about it is to recognize that the shepherds are the hands and feet of God inside the church, in the house. They're the ones, you know, we talked about that house analogy where, like, there's different kind of parts. I mentioned how shepherds are like the people who take care of the water, the heating, the refrigeration, the lighting. They're the people who make it a home.
Yes.
So you need them to be in that capacity.
Yes.
Because if you're just, like, bringing people into an empty building that has no heat or water, they can't live there.
Right.
So shepherds have this vital role, and appreciating them for that vital role is huge.
Yes.
It's hugely important to understand, to appreciate, to acknowledge that they know that they have this thing with their hands where they're going to, like, make these people feel comfortable and loved and taken care of. And that's invaluable. That's how people accept that they can grow here. They can live here. They can get to know Jesus here. And they can feel safe in this environment where they can develop their relationship with Jesus. They can go through those painful processes of sanctification, where God is just taking everything from inside their heart and soul and burning off all the stuff that doesn't belong there, and developing them as new creations. Shepherds can be there to tend to them as the seed is dropped to the ground, dies, and then grows a tree. And that's the thing, is, like, some of the best things that we can do to encourage and build up shepherds is to let them be shepherds. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is twofold. Number one, don't tell them they're wrong for wanting to take care of the people in the church. Don't dismiss their heart to take care of people in the church. Mm-hmm. If you're in a position where you're looking at them and you're seeing that they're not going out into the field enough, maybe that's because that's not what they're called to do. Maybe that's not what they're built to do. Take the God hat off yourself and let God's children be God's children. When we talk about the fivefold ministry, we're talking about 5 very different kinds of heart cries with people who are built into a fully structured church. The interior design and making sure it can be a comfortable home is important for it to exist. Letting shepherds shepherd is a must. So in some ways, the best thing that I can say to like help them is to just get out of their way.
Yes.
In the same boat, when they turn to you to take care of you, take what they're saying seriously. If you are the head pastor of the church and you have the little old lady coming up to you and just wanting to take care of you, let her take care of you. If you're the lowest member of the church and you think you don't even belong there, and you have somebody come up to you and they just want to like talk to you and counsel you and minister to you, and they want to take you out to lunch, and they want to pay for your food, and they just want to like talk to you and get to know you, let them do it. They're doing exactly what their heart calls for them to do. They're existing in the space that Jesus has created in them to exist in. Let them take care of you. The reason why, no matter how together you think you are, you're probably not. And I say this as a man who is very talented at thinking he has everything together and being very wrong often. And the thing about it is that there's a place to just accept being taken care of.
Yes.
That's for everybody. God didn't design the church to be a place where the hierarchy says that he designed says once you're at the top, you are the pinnacle. No, you're just another part of it. You're on the floor with everybody else. God's the only one up top, okay? Jesus is the king. Jesus is the head of the church. Nobody else is the head. If you're an apostle, if you're a prophet, you're the eyes, you're the ears. You know, it's just one of those things where like none of us has the full like capacity to be that thing, you know, that all-consuming power in the church, despite how we might think about it. We have way too many church leaders with God complexes, and not enough of them receiving from the shepherds around them who know, because they see it, they see the need. You know how many, do you know how many pastors I know who have orphan spirits, who live and exist in the state of constant loneliness, and they don't let the shepherds in their church come around them to take care of them? Because they think it's going to make them feel, because what? It makes them feel like they're going to be seen as less valuable or less important because they might get vulnerable, or they might feel safe to be vulnerable, and then they're going to open up to these people who, mind you, are probably not going to judge them in any way, shape, or form because they just want to take care of them. They already get the sense that there's something that needs to be taken care of. But then these pastors are gonna be like, or these church leaders are just like, well, I can't do that. If I get vulnerable, then they might see the real me. And if they see the real me, they won't want to listen to me anymore. Bro, if the real you is something that's gonna make people not listen to you anymore, then the real you needs help.
You should definitely let the shepherds.
And you should definitely let the shepherds take care of you. Okay? Just real talk. But that's the thing. Just one of the most valuable things we can do is to let them be what they are. Let them take care of you. Let them take care of you. Let them take care of parts of the church. If you have somebody gifted in administration, please let them do their job. Please let them do what they want to do, because they will do it better than you. I assure you. You know, like, there's just so many, if their heart cry is to just intercede on behalf of other people, let them do it. Shepherds so often get kind of pushed aside and told that they're like, I don't need this. Or they get the most common thing that people do in the church to shepherds is the shepherds will come up alongside them and say, hey, can I just help you with this thing, or can I take care of this for you, can I do this? And oftentimes us in our pride will say, no, I'm okay, I got this. No, I'm good, man, I got this. And the shepherd will just be like, okay, all right, if you say so. Are you sure? Yeah, no, I'm good. I don't need this, man. Just let them do their thing. Receive. Because the thing about it is like, as the church as a whole needs to learn to receive. And part of that thing is receiving love, receiving care. Do you know how functional of a leader of Christians you're going to be when Christ comes to you and you can't receive his love? It turns out you're not going to be very great. Because the vast majority of our existence as people in the church, as members of the body, is receiving love and pouring out love. So shepherds are a literal physical example of people exhibiting God's love and pouring it out on you for you to receive. So the biggest thing you can do to build them up is to let them do it. Like, if it gets weird, fine. If they're struggling with boundaries and it's getting uncomfortable, fine. Fine. If you have a better appreciation of boundaries than they do, I get it. And sometimes, yeah, you have predatory people who are coming around and they're misguided, and I get that. There's a lot of women who maybe should not accept that dinner invitation from that one guy who's like twice their age in the church who just really wants to take care of them. Sometimes they are completely well-meaning. Sometimes they're not. Use your judgment. Let the Holy Spirit guide you. But at the end of the day, as a baseline, the best way to help shepherds build and grow and develop is that. And another thing is, if you have young shepherds who need guidance on boundaries and you have an understanding of how to do that, or a clear picture, help them. Take them under your wing. Because at the end of the day, wounded people hurt people. And wounded shepherds have a particular talent for hurting people.
Oh, yeah. Just like they can keep families together, they can split families apart.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is because of that nature of like just bringing people together, like being a help to people, being a gift in that sense. They will like, there is one shepherd I know from personal experience who she takes people in who need help and she provides a refuge for them. And then she kicks them out. As soon as things start to feel too comfortable, as soon as things start to feel in any way, shape, or form like she's being taken advantage of, and I mean any way at all.
And sometimes it won't be real at all.
9 times out of 10, it's not real. But she'll boot them. And then they get betrayed and they feel rejected. And it's something that I've seen with others as well. But it's just not... There's a place to be able for us to take young shepherds and help them to develop the boundaries to keep themselves safe. To keep themselves safe, to keep themselves comfortable, and to continue to be, at the same time, continue to be that love of God that we need in the church. So there is a place for that. To just be able. And sometimes, yeah, like, sometimes you also just need to be that voice of correction. where you have somebody there and they start to get gossipy or they start to get judgmental, and you are the one who says, "Hey, what are you doing? Like, do you really think you're just judging that person right now? Maybe you need to go talk to them rather than just believing everything that this other person said. Let's go talk to them together." Like, there's a place for that, and to help get them out of that kind of like that thing that they can do. But it's just one of those things, like, at the end of the day, there's a lot that we can do, but it's important, it's vital for us to build up our shepherds, to make sure that they are comfortable shepherding, because they'll make you comfortable. They'll make you feel loved. They'll take care of so many different things. Because they want to. That's their heart. And it's a beautiful heart to have. It's an absolute blessing to have in the church.
And they'll keep the church family together.
And they will keep that church family together. So yeah, that's what I got.